Good evening, everybody. We'll go ahead and call this regular commission meeting of June 10th to order. We'll begin with an approval of the agenda. I do have one addition, which is under agenda items, item E. We have the CRA interlocal agreement that is under a kind of a time rush. It's the same agreement pretty much that we've had for the last 2 years. So I think we could probably get it in tonight. And I believe that is the only addition. Is that right, Mr. Manager?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that's the only change that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right, so at this time, I'll have a motion to approve the agenda as has been publicized with that one addition of item E under the agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Martin.
Second.
A second from Commissioner Hersom. Any questions about the agenda from the dais? Comments? Any questions, comments about the agenda from the public? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. At this time, I'd like to invite Pastor Bracewell from Christian Life Fellowship. There he is. He was hiding behind the podium. Come on down, sir. If you would please rise for the invocation and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance after. We appreciate you joining us here tonight.
I had to pull myself away from VBS, so I'll be leaving
we
right away
appreciate it.
because there are children waiting.
We understand.
Thanks for the opportunity. Let's pray. Father God, we are so grateful for your love. We are grateful, Lord, for your kindness. Lord, we know that every good thing comes from you. And Father, I just thank you for this season. I know that this is sort of a freedom season in our nation. We've had Memorial Day. We thank you for those that have given the last full measure of devotion, Lord, to secure our freedoms and ensure them. Father, on Flag Day, just around the corner, where that great symbol, wherever we see it, reminds us of the land of the free and the home of the brave. And Lord, our Independence Day also very soon. Thank you, God, for the freedoms that we enjoy as Americans. Most of all, Lord, I thank you for the freedoms we enjoy through the sacrifice of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Thank you for freeing us, Lord. I just pray that tonight you just give wisdom to these who lead us. Lord, we pray for them. It's biblical to do that, to pray for those that lead us, those that govern. We know that they are here by your authority. And so, Lord, we just pray for them, that you'd bless them, give them wisdom and guidance tonight. Bless this great city, Lord. We are just blessed to be a part of this fine community. God, we love you, we honor you, and we recognize you, and we welcome you here tonight in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. Amen. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor Bracewell. We appreciate it. Beautiful invocation. All right, we have with us a special evening tonight. It is the 87th birthday of Mr. Henry Ford McRae Sr., and we welcome you here joining us tonight, sir. And I would like to read the following proclamation to honor you, and then ask you if you'd join us up at the podium so that I can present the proclamation to you. Okay? So, recognizing the 87th birthday of Mr. Henry Ford McRae Sr., whereas Henry McRae Sr. was honored by friends and relatives on the occasion of his 87th birthday at the Pleasant Plain United Methodist Church on Sunday, May 26th, and whereas Henry McRae Sr. was born May 8th in 1932 in Jonesville, Florida, to Taretha Stokes and Roosevelt Nelson, and whereas he married Lois McRae on May of 1951, and together they raised 8 sons and 1 daughter. Congratulations. Whew. They are blessed with many grandchildren and great-grandchildren. He has been heard to say, quote, "My grands and great-grands love me, and I love them." And whereas Henry has lived during the most eventful century of this world's history and in the history of Newberry, he experienced working with his grandfather farming, the Sunland Meatpacking Company in Alachua, and 20 years with the School Board of Alachua County. And whereas Mr. McRae is an avid baseball player, coach, and fan, he continues to share his time with his grandchildren, teaching them baseball techniques. Now, therefore, I, Jordan Marlowe, Mayor of the City of Newberry, the Newberry Commissioners, along with the citizens of Newberry, honor Mr. McRae, Henry McRae Sr., on his 87th birthday and wish him many more on this 10th day of June, 2019. Come around, turn around, let's get a picture together with all these grands and grandkids you got, and then we'd love to hear from you. Would you like to say a few words to the commission?
Well, I really appreciate it.
Turn right around here. Speaking, we got people watching at home on YouTube. They want to meet you.
I really appreciate y'all inviting me to this. And I thank the good Lord for each day and night. And I give and what we have to do in that wonderful prayer y'all had that we have to do all we can and what we can to please God. Don't worry about man, God. And I give him all the praise and glory and honor. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen and amen and amen. Thank you.
Thank you for being here with us, sir. We do appreciate it. Happy birthday. Looks like you got a lot of friends and family that have been celebrating with you. And with that many children and grandchildren, you deserve it. Would anybody else like to say anything on behalf of Mr. McCray? There's an age limit to talking now.
I'll just take this time. That's
Come
my
on.
dad.
If you'd introduce yourself into the
My
microphone.
name is Daniel McCray Sr. I'm a graduate from Newberry Junior Senior High School in 1975. And I just want to say he's been a good dad. He's a lovely dad and wonderful. And we thank you all for recognizing him.
Thank you. I'm a graduate of Newberry High when it was junior, senior as well. So,
My name is Wayne Fields. I am a member of Pleasant Plain United Methodist Church, and it's an honor to be able to be here. I had the opportunity to meet Mayor Marlowe a number of times, and the times that he has interacted with us at the church and in the community, he has been an amazing mayor. Thank you for
Thank you for
everything
that.
that you do for the community.
I appreciate it.
And for Mr. McCray, he is a very special man. He gives us all advice regardless of how old we are or how young we are at the church. He is a pillar and a true patriot of the community. And I'd like to congratulate him, if he's still here. Yes, he is. Because you mean so much to the church and to the community. Congratulations. This is your day. Great proclamation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to have to come by and get some of that advice from you now. I always need it. Y'all drive safe going home. We appreciate you joining us. All right. And Mike, we have an employee spotlight tonight.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you know, we periodically present one of the city's employees to the community and to the commission, kind of brag on them a little bit. And tonight, I'd like to recognize Anthony Briner, who has been with the city for all of about 6 weeks, I'm guessing. So he's one of our newest employees, and certainly the newest employee to Newberry Fire Department, where changeover is really, really slow. I think the next guy in line has probably got 10 or 15 years of experience at our fire department. And you know, most nights when we're bragging on employees here and we're spotlighting employees, I tell you how they're off from Newberry High School. Well, we've hired an employee that did not graduate from Newberry Junior Senior High School. This one graduated from Jupiter High School in South Florida. So he saw the light and moved up from South Florida to North Central Florida, where he can enjoy a wonderful community like Newberry. He's an avid outdoorsman, spends time with friend and family, boating and canoeing and diving and fishing and hunting. And that's perfect for the community that he's moved into. So Anthony, just wanted to introduce you, if you'd stand up, and welcome you to the city of Newberry as an employee. Appreciate what you've done for us so far and look forward to a long tenure with you. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
You don't have to talk if you don't want to, but if you want to tell us why you came to Newberry, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Anyone from Jupiter, come on up, right?
I'd like to thank you guys for inviting me here tonight. I'd like to thank my crew, the guys I work with every day, the other guys at the station. They're all great. They welcomed me right into their home. It's a little different up here. It's a little bit slower, but there's nothing wrong with that. I like it. Small town.
That's what we like about it, too.
Yep. I'm still in paramedic school right now, down
Awesome.
south.
Great.
I have family over in High Springs, so I'll drive up the night before, stay with them, and then I'll just head over to the station in the morning and then go back down south until I finish up school, and then we'll go from there.
All right. Well, good luck in school. Congratulations. And it was probably that brand new, shiny, renovated station that
Oh, yeah.
brought you up, right? Absolutely. Well, welcome to the city of Newberry.
Thanks.
All right.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Commissioner Martin.
Is there some kind of hazing operation that has to take place for you to get a name tag?
Thank y'all.
Well, we seem to have cleared out one side of the city hall, so if anybody wants to, little elbow room, feel free. Mr. Manager, Jamie going to come up and talk to us about the next presentation?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Jamie's actually going to introduce our guests who are going to present an award, I believe, from Florida Warren.
Yes, Mayor, Commissioners, it's my pleasure to introduce Carol Hinton from the U.S. TRIO Center and the Florida Water and Wastewater Response Network. We'd like to make a little presentation about Florida Warren and some activities that the city has participated in assistance of Hurricane Michael.
All right, thank you, Jamie. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, hello. I also have Ron Trager here with me, familiar to y'all. So I'm going to just give you a little information about what Florida Warren is. We're Florida Water Wastewater Agency Response Network. We're a mutual aid organization. So we found out after the hurricanes of 2004, if you wait for FEMA to help you, you're not going to get the help you need for your water and wastewater systems. So what we do is it's a free membership. Y'all are members. There's no requirement, but if you really want to get help, on a timely basis, you sign your mutual aid agreement, which y'all have. It hasn't committed you to anything except helping people if you feel called. So that's what y'all did during the hurricane. You sent a generator up to Jackson County for their water plant, and I was so impressed because so many small systems reached out to help. I mean, we had JEA, one of the largest in the country, we are in the state. We had several from across the state, but it was so happy for me to see the city of Newberry to reach out and help. And as you know, if you ever need the assistance, we'll be able to help find somebody to help you. You want to add anything, Ron?
You said it perfectly.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So who wants to?
I believe it's appropriate for Jamie to
Yeah,
be the recipient.
he led the charge. Here. Well,
Ron, he doesn't bite.
That is a big smile for Jamie.
Thank y'all.
We appreciate it. We were very proud of all of our city employees and our community to get it through that storm. We had an awful lot of folks that stepped up to make the best out of a bad situation. So thank you for honoring what they did. We do appreciate that. And that brings us to Miss Karen Clark, our school board superintendent of Alachua County. We appreciate you coming and talking to us a little bit about what's going on and how we're doing with that half-cent sales tax and all of those good things.
All righty. Well, thank you, Commissioner Martin, for the invitation, and I'm very excited to be bright, be brief, and be gone this evening. I will not exceed the 15 minutes allotted to scheduled agency presentations. I'm just going to ask for an operational question. Am I clicking with this, or are you clicking for me here? I'm on it. Okay.
Well, we're going to try clicking with that. We have various levels of success.
Oh, there we go.
Look at that.
Well, you never know. Sometimes technology, you know how that goes. So just kind of a brief overview of kind of where we are right now. As you all know, this was approved in 2018 by 68% of the voters. But one thing I want to talk about, though, is when you look at the precincts that serve the city of Newberry, we were right at about 57%. And I know in this community what that means. To have this community support an additional tax is big, and we appreciate the trust that you've placed in us. It's expected to raise about $22 million a year over the 12 years, not $22 million one time, which was in the paper recently. 22 over 12 years. It is going to have a major impact on our local economy. For the city of Newberry itself, when you look at the 3 schools, you're looking at an investment of just over $32 million of that will be coming into the city. So you just, put that into of how we're going to help develop the area. I think that's pretty phenomenal. There is an independent citizens oversight committee. They met for the first time actually last week to start laying out the groundwork for that and elected a chair and a vice chair. And they'll be meeting regularly to ensure that all expenditures are expended in the manner which the voters intended. As we've shared before, the monthly cost is about $5. So our goals, just a reminder, modernizing, replacing, and renovating old and outdated facilities, providing maintenance for all those wonderful things that are not the fun parts, but the things that have to be done, but then also capacity, building new space and eliminating portables. That's critical for us. Eliminating portables is huge. So when we look at how we are going to schedule projects, or actually how we've scheduled projects, all of these factors, and I won't read them all to you, have gone into that process. And we actually brought in an outside firm to help us with that, so that we can really take a look at, I can probably tell you, or my staff can, the oldest section of roof in this entire county, and it would blow your mind as to where it is. It's at Childs Elementary School, one of our newer schools. But the type of roof, the location, all those things that go into it, that's the piece of roof that's in the worst shape in our district. And we have that for every roof section and all. So basically, we've looked at all of these things and how these play into the work we're doing, whether it's new construction or renovation. Because obviously, those things have to be treated a little bit differently depending on what we're doing at each individual school. So looking for Newberry Elementary School. So up until this point, since 2000, spent almost $7 million. Over the last couple of years, and you all may be very well aware of this, the major HVAC replacement, that kind of took over the school for about a year. And generally, those major HVAC replacements will do that. I think some of you probably recognize that. It's not as a matter of changing out a compressor and you're done. There's engineering and design work that goes into a lot of those because many of our units are on rooftops and things that have to go along with that. So that was almost $1.5 million. So our upcoming planned projects, and let me kind of take a step back and talk about how we plan projects. Everyone wants to be first, and no one wants to be last. We all know that. No one wants to be that very last project 12 years or 13 years from now. But on the flip side of that, I also charge staff with how do we touch every school in a meaningful way in the first 5 years? Because people want to see what their money is going towards. And if you're waiting 12 years, you kind of lose faith, lose patience in the process. So we've got 2 rounds of projects scheduled for Newberry Elementary School, and part of it has to do with how we stage projects, because obviously the more you stage, the more expensive that becomes. But also, how do we make sure students are where they need to be during this process, because learning is still going on. We can't do all of this in June, July, and August. There's no way. So there's a big piece of that goes into the scheduling and timing of the projects. So in this case for Newberry Elementary, you're going to have major HVAC replacement in buildings 2 and 3, those classroom rings. Those are pretty problematic for us. But in the grand scheme of things, we've also prioritized all of our HVAC systems. And then in 2030, there would be a complete renovation, modernizing of Building 1, 14 new classrooms, expanding the food service and administration areas. So that will be to the tune of about $9 million. So when we talk about the year, that's the year that the project will commence. So that's when we start design, the permanent, all of those things. That doesn't mean it's done then. That's when we'll be starting that process. We've tried to be very conservative, but yet also very forward thinking with those timelines. Obviously, if you have a major storm, have a building collapse somewhere, obviously those things can change. But we're feeling pretty confident in the timelines that we have generated because we have tried to keep in mind our ability to manage those projects well, the cash flow, all of that goes into that. So next for Oakview Middle School. Now Oakview is one of the newer schools in the district, and since 2000 we've only spent about $2.2 million because they had spent $15 million on it just in 1994. So in 2019 we're going to begin the process of constructing 15 new classrooms there. This actually fills out the master plan because the original design for that was to have that additional classroom wing. But at the time we opened with 550 students, we didn't necessarily need that wing. We had plenty of capacity. And a lot of folks, it was going to take a really long time to have portables and need those other classrooms. And 25 years later, here we are, and we need those classrooms. So that will be begun in 2019, and then in 2025, looking at renovating and modernizing 33 of the existing classrooms, and then also the media center as part of that project, which again will be right at about $9 million. And then for Newberry High School, for the last 17 years, about $6.5 million. We've just completed the gymnasium, the major HVAC, roof and HVAC, because again, when those units are on the roof, it makes sense to do them both at the same time. In 2020, we'll be in the process of renovating and modernize the classrooms and science labs in Building 11. Then in 2024, construct the 8 new classroom building, renovate and modernize your 33 existing classrooms in that main building, the media center, kitchen, dining, and then the music suite. So that would be about $14 million. We also did, as just a little reminder, a little tickler there, that we did We've got that lift station project going again. Nothing very exciting, but we were able to help that out in order to improve that, that capability
We
there.
appreciate that.
Yes, that's always a good thing. It's not the fun stuff.
Very exciting to some of
Well, exactly. For some people it would, and it's not the thing you see, but if it's not done correctly, you will know it. Now, I talk about Elementary School I, which is the new school that's scheduled to open in the fall of 21, located off of Parker Road on the property right across from Diamond Sports Park. Why that's important to the Newberry area, it is entirely possible, and we have not even started the process. So this isn't something that, yes, this is gospel in the Gainesville Sun tomorrow, but based on where our zone line's on right now, it is very likely to draw some students on the eastern edge of the Newberry Schools border to attend that new school. So that helps alleviate some of the overcrowding in the Newberry schools as well. So we are looking to start that process for the public in the fall of 2020. We will start as a staff in late fall working on our part of that process, but it generally takes 15 to 18 months to get zoning finished. There's lots of public hearings that go into that, but the goal was to make sure that we were able to draw from several schools to be able to alleviate some overcrowding where it's been very critical. Again, a lot of public workshops. There will be lots of those as we move forward with that process. So they look at that zoning criteria. Obviously, number one is the school and grade level capacity, and that's what impacts the Newberry schools the most, is that piece of the capacity that we can serve the students in the area, and of course, transportation and some of those other things that go along with that. This is still under development. We are this close to going live on our website, and it's kind of small. My apologies to that. There's going to be a story map for every school site. So at any given time, you'll click on it, you'll see a picture of the school, the proposed projects, timelines, and once we get to the part where we start spending money, there will be a piece there that shows where we are in the phase of the project and how much money to date has been spent on that project. So that's coming. We're real close to that rolling live. But that's where we are, and that will be for every school in the district. So if you just decide one night you want to know what's going on at Gainesville High School, you'll be able to click on Gainesville High School and see anything that's going on and the dollar amounts that have been spent. This is also a piece of that. You'll see some overhead drone footage, pictures of these school sites. But it's hard to see with the color coding, but you'll see, are there buildings scheduled for new construction, for renovation, to be torn down, any of those type of projects, so you can kind of get a better feel. Because sometimes when we say building 11, unless you're in the school, you probably don't know where building 11 is. In this case, it will enable you to see that building and see by the color code what's planned for that particular building. Again, this is scheduled to go live here pretty soon, a couple weeks. And it could be. I can't see it. I don't have glasses on at this moment, so I can't really see it very well. No big deal. But you know what? It may, baseball.
It doesn't look like the high school, but I can't.
Yeah,
I
it
can't
doesn't
really
look like
make
the
it
high
out.
school from here, but I could be wrong.
I don't know where the science building is, if that's. Oh, I see a baseball. Yeah, okay. I'm looking at it the other way.
If someone points out the
Okay.
cemetery, I'll know exactly where I am.
Yeah. Down at the very
How about
bottom, you
that?
can see the
Just
track.
show me where the cemetery is, so I can figure out the
The
rest of it.
cemetery's not actually on that picture. Now that I see the track, I'm oriented correctly. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
But
Okay,
I get
no-
your point. There'll be a website we can watch the stories for all the schools.
Correct, for all schools. So it will be a true story map of the money that's being spent, what the projects are. I mean, this is all about transparency and dollars. I personally take that pretty seriously, because obviously my name's on it, my staff's names are on it. And that's something we take very seriously, that we are spending the money exactly as the voters intended. And that is something we are very much committed to. And so we want to make sure that this is out there, and especially when projects get rolling, there'll be a lot more information on there, obviously. The design phase isn't exactly exciting to a lot of people. People want to know when dirt moves. You know, it doesn't matter that it takes us 6 to 9 months to permit something or a year to design something. That's not fast enough. They want to see shovels turning dirt. So we're trying to get there, to get those shovels turning dirt. There are going to be some very small projects at schools. Each school has been allocated $50,000. To select a project that meets the capital outlay requirements. But it may be something that's not necessarily a huge project. the Newberry schools are fortunate that the PTAs and boosters have contributed money for the digital marquees. Well, we've got several schools in Gainesville that don't have those, so I think some of them are spending it on that. New playground equipment, things of that sort, where the school, in conjunction with the School Advisory Council and the PTA, can select what it is that they want to do with that $50,000. So that will bring some immediate impact to the schools, that people can see, hey, this is what's happening, but also have a say in those smaller projects. So we have allocated those, and we're starting to roll those projects out. But we're excited to get started on some of these projects, and for me personally, it'll be really fun to see that new building go up over at the middle school, because I never thought I'd see the day when that would happen, and here it is, not much later. But that's something we're really working towards, to make sure that we're transparent with those dollars, and then the public can follow us every step of the way.
Well, we're excited to get started too, but we understand that that is design and engineering. If you speed through that, then you generally make some mistakes later on. So
Correct.
we appreciate you taking your time and thinking that all the way through. Does the commission have any questions for Ms. Clark? Commissioner Martin?
Appreciate you coming by. This is kind of the information that I was hoping for. And we don't, just because you're from Newberry, we don't expect any special treatment, just as long as we're your first priority.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because my staff can vouch for the fact that I was almost overly concerned about that, probably more than I should have been. I was, quite truthfully, because as we looked at those projects, if we front-loaded some of those projects a little too much, it would have probably not been a good thing. But this is something that's needed, and it fits in the priority list well. So yeah, yes, first
Well, we
priority,
appreciate
absolutely.
Yeah, one more.
I understand you have a special guest with you tonight.
Before we get to that, could I, 1 second?
Yes,
I just-
that's coming.
When Newberry Elementary, or not Newberry, I'm sorry, when Elementary School I is completed, have there been any conversations about moving 5th grade back to the elementary school, or are we pretty
We have
happy with that?
not even discussed
Not
that
even got
part.
that
We're not
far.
even there yet.
Okay.
Because I can see the pros and cons of that, because I have to say, because I was the one who inherited the 5th grade the first year, and I was like, oh, what are we going to do with 5th graders? It's a middle school, and running through all those phases, and I get it. And so that is certainly a piece of the conversation, depending on how we're able to work all that out. It's a unique situation. 5 through 8 is kind of a unique configuration. But, if it's working, that's great, but
Yeah.
I think it just depends on
I haven't
where we
heard
are.
pros and cons. I mean, I guess there's always pros and cons,
Sure.
but I've not heard anything negative. I'm just curious. And now I think you do have someone you might like to introduce
Well,
to the
I
city.
did. It just worked out because I wasn't really aware that they were all coming tonight to support this, because I just said
Yeah.
I'll take care of it. But I do have my facilities team here in case there were questions, because sometimes all the time, they're probably smarter than I am. But I do have 2 of our principals here. The first one is our new principal of Newberry Elementary, Miss Vicki McElhaney.
Will you come down? Introduce yourself to us.
Say hello.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mayor Marlowe and Commissioners. It's my absolute pleasure to serve the community of Newberry. I live in Newberry. I'm a resident of Newberry Oaks. And so now I get to serve not only my community, but I get to serve the children of Newberry. And that is an absolute blessing and honor. So thank you very much.
Well, just go ahead and plan. Every time you go to the post office or Hitchcock's or
Yes.
the gas station, add another 20 to 30 minutes onto that, because
Absolutely.
we're tight knit.
Yes,
when people see you, they're
absolutely.
going to have some questions for you.
And I am happy to sit down, take time, and talk at any time. You can find me over at the elementary school at any time, Newberry Oaks at any time. You can find me there, and I'll always be available to listen. Absolutely.
Thank
I
you
take
so
this
much.
with the highest of honors, and I'm going to take excellent care of those kids over there. My boys, I have twin boys. They're 5, and they will be Panthers in the fall, and they're very
Wonderful.
excited. They ask for backpacks every day. Mama, is this the day to get a backpack? No, it's not the day to get a backpack, but it's coming.
You need a little more time, too. Right?
I need a little bit more time. But they actually go to Greenfield Preschool right now, and so they've had a wonderful experience. I, too, have come to Gainesville, Alachua County from South Florida. I saw the light, too, way back when, and I've taught at
Well done.
Alachua Elementary. I've taught at Hidden Oak. I taught a couple years in Orlando, and so I just am so blessed. I feel so blessed to serve in this role.
Wonderful. Well, welcome to the city of Newberry. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for coming up and letting us put you on the spot.
No, my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. It's nice talking to you all.
And we also have Mr. Kelly Armstrong, Oakview's principal, who came, I know you know him, but he was wonderful enough to come and support because, you know, it's a little special place in my heart, so I take great care, not that I don't with all schools, but take great care in selecting leaders for this community. So I think you'll be very
You've done a great
pleased.
job.
So
We like them.
I told there's no extra pressure there.
Yeah.
However, yeah.
And
thank
we
you.
appreciate you bringing the facilities guys out here too. They've been wonderful at Newberry High School. I can't speak for the other schools, but I'm sure they have as well. Yeah. So they're always there whenever we need them. So thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you so much. All right, now we've come to a moment in our meetings where we open the floor for public announcements. These are 2-minute announcements that are non-controversial. If you want a little bit longer time, you have a 5-minute comment at the end of the night. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Fine. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I am Marlon Day, the Library Manager at the Newberry Branch Library with the Alachua County Library District. The summer reading program has kicked off. We had a very nice turnout for our programs last week, and we expect a full house this week for the Luby Bat visit, which is going to be Friday at 11 a.m. If you have any children that are interested in that, they will be bringing out at least one bat. And June is for jewelry, and next week we'll be using Creative Bug to make tassel pendant necklaces. This is a craft for teens and adults. It's going to be Tuesday, June 18th at 3 p.m., and I've left some flyers in the back if anybody is interested. Creative Bug is a really powerful tool, and it should be a lot of fun. Also, if you haven't signed up for the summer reading program yet, and I checked today and nobody has, we hope that you
None of these guys or nobody has. None of these. Okay. I'm not sure we thought it. We knew it was available to us, but
It is available, absolutely. If you haven't joined the summer reading program yet, we hope that you will join the fun. So far this year, we've had 226 readers. They've logged over about 350 books, and we've written about 253 book reviews. So you can go to www.aclib.us/track to sign up today.
Oh, you're gonna have to text that to me. I didn't get any of it, but we'll figure it out. You want to try it one more time?
www.aclib.us/track, T-R-A-C-K, track.
All right. I think I got it that time.
And as always, you can always check out our calendar for more programs and events that are coming to the Newberry Ranch Library. And please spread the word on these.
All right. Awesome.
Any questions?
As always, thank you, sir. Anybody got questions? Commissioner Farnsworth?
All right, 2 weeks ago when you did your presentation, I went online to try to sign up for it, and I wasn't able to locate where to sign up. Is there something I'm not doing correctly, or was it even posted at that time?
It's pretty easy to do. It's at aclib.us/track. I'm sorry. And I probably gave you the wrong address last time. I'm sure that's.
I'm sure that's what it was.
I will give you the written address today.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Any other public announcements? All right, I'll challenge everybody. Sign up, see which commissioner can read the most this summer. Come on. We'll add magazines in there.
Do audiobooks count?
Do audiobooks count, Marlon?
Audiobooks absolutely count.
Oh, I'm in. All right. Okay. Any educational principal could probably join this challenge as well, you know. All right. Any other public announcements? All right. Hearing none, we will move on to our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? I have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth, a second from Commissioner Coleman. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion passes unanimously. We'll move into public hearings and ordinances. And Madam Attorney, would you read item A into the record for us, please?
I'd be happy to. This is ordinance number 2019-11, an ordinance by the City of Newberry, Florida, amending the City of Newberry, Florida Code of Ordinances, Appendix B, Land Development Regulations, Article 8, Florida Damage Prevention Regulations, to make modifications to bring the regulations into agreement with the most current FEMA-approved Code Companion Floodplain Management Ordinance for Florida communities, providing for severability and providing an effective date.
All right. Wendy, will you give us a presentation before I ask for a motion?
Yes, I will.
Are we glasses on or glasses off?
I guess I'll leave them on.
Okay. All right.
It's probably smarter. This application before you has already been heard by the Planning and Zoning Board. This is the request to change the city's regulations dealing with flood prevention and flood damage prevention. And the Planning and Zoning Board recommended approval. The City Commission heard this on first reading on May 28th and voted unanimously to approve that application on first reading. This is your second hearing tonight. Essentially, the City of Newberry is one of the first communities who became part of the flood, one of the first Florida communities that adopted the flood regulations that FEMA put forward through the state of Florida. Essentially, flood zone designations are periodically established, and they're revised when new or more information comes available. And the frequency of that kind of thing is essentially when there's new things that have happened as far as new development or new regulations have come into play. In this case, as long as we want to participate in the Florida, the National Flood Insurance Program in Florida, then we need to be able to adopt regulations that comply with that regulation. And so today, this is the purpose of the application, is to update our regulations, and essentially those proposed changes are to change existing requirements for the types of data that's required for applications for flood hazard area designation, and then to update the reference code citations, as well as include an additional provision for reinforced piers, a method for the manufactured homes to be used as a type of foundation. And in addition, there's a provision for adding to the final plats when those are filed to require that a statement be included noting that flood information is subject to change. So if the staff has recommended approval, and in addition to your Planning and Zoning Board and in addition to your own action last hearing. So if you have any questions, we're happy to try to answer them for you.
All right, this is the second reading of another example of where our staff is ahead of the game compared to other cities. Did anybody come up with any questions between the first and the second reading of this for staff? Commissioner Norfleet.
With that, the only question I got, and I don't know if it pertains, but is this going to cost the city any financial?
No, sir, Mr. Chair, it does not. Mayor, it's just regulations that are making sure that it's in compliance with the state's code. It brings it in conformance.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion at this time to approve or not to approve.
Motion to approve the ordinance?
I have a motion from Commissioner Herson, a second from Commissioner Farnsworth. Any questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Does the public have any questions on the motion on the floor to approve the ordinance? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. And Madam Attorney, would you please read ordinance 2019-13 into the record?
This is ordinance 2019-13, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending the text of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations as amended to amend Section 4.2.4 entitled Accessory Uses and Structures in Sections 4.4.3, 4.5.3, 4.6.3, 4.7.3, 4.8.3, 4.9.3, 4.9A.3, 4.10.3, 4.11.3, 4.12.3, 4.13.3, 4.14.3, 4.15.3, 4.16.3, 4.17.3, 4.18.3, 4.19.4, 4.20.3, 4.21.3, all entitled Permitted Accessory Uses and Structures, repealing all ordinances in conflict and providing an effective date.
Now, she did that off of her phone. When Scott's up here, he's got a supersized iPad. You know, she's got that was impressive. Good job. All right, Brian, you want to give us a presentation before I ask for a motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And she even caught the little one I snuck in there, the .4, that was different than all the rest.
Did my best, I practiced.
This is the second reading of the ordinance relative to accessory structures. The brief history, our current regulations require that all structures, regardless of type, are in the building setback lines, which in a typical residential area is 10-foot side setbacks, 15-foot rear setbacks. in order to vary to that, the applicant has to request a hardship variance, which typically has been granted, but kind of puts the commission or the Board of Adjustment in the position of granting something that technically we shouldn't, because there's no real hardship there other than they have a small yard or need that's the location they want to put it in. Variance application costs $200 to cover the cost of minimum advertising requirements. And since 2014, we have not had any incidents of these type of variances being denied. And so it's something that we seem to have an indication that the board is happy to grant and would be even happier not to have to grant on a regular basis and take this burden off of the residents. And so the proposed amendment would allow for these temporary type structures, which, as we talked about before, they come in on skids. They're not mounted on permanent foundations such as a slab or actual concrete foundation. Prefabricated carports, same kind of thing. There's aluminum type structures that come in pre-engineered. And we would still require a minimum 5-foot separation, so that if you have structures on either side of the property line, there's still a minimum of 10-foot separation, which is what the Life Safety Code requires for fire separation. And the carports in the front yards would not be affected by this. They would still have to comply with the front yard setbacks. Quick example, the scaled out, you've got about 15 feet in the back, 10 foot on the side. This would allow just to go a little bit further, allow people a little bit more of their yard to enjoy rather than have to walk around the shed. On the 5/6/19 Planning and Zoning Board hearing, they recommended unanimously to recommend approval of the ordinance and application LDR 1904 to the City Commission. And on 5/28, the City Commission also voted unanimously to approve on first reading ordinance 2019-13. And so therefore, staff recommends enactment of ordinance 2019-13 on second reading.
All right. Again, it's the second reading. I got a lot of positive feedback after you guys voted unanimously the first reading. Does anybody have any questions for staff to come up with anything, think of anything in between the first and the second reading? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, a second from Commissioner Herson. Any questions or comments on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, does the public have any questions or comments on the motion on the floor? Approve changing the setbacks to 5 instead of 10. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, sir. And Madam Attorney, one more time, if you will.
This is ordinance number 2019-14, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending the text of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations as amended to amend Section 11.11, approval of changes to landmarks and landmark sites, providing an administrative approval process for specified types of changes, providing approval criteria, severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. When do you want to give us a presentation before I ask for a motion?
Yes, Mayor, this application is before you to make changes to your historic district regulations having to do with historic sites and structures in order to provide for an administrative approval process. Staff recommendation is for approval, and you've gone through the Planning and Zoning Board public hearing, and they recommended approval as well with an addition of a whereas clause that I'll go over with you at the very end. And then the City Commission, you did hold your first public hearing on May 28th and voted unanimously to approve that on first reading, and tonight is your second hearing. Essentially, the properties in the historic district and anything that's individually designated as a landmark is required to go through the Certificate of Appropriateness process, which goes before the Historic Architectural Review Board. And the Certificate of Appropriateness applies to anything that's changed on the exterior of a building that's visible to the public from a public road, essentially. The types of uses that are considered minor changes, that would be types of things that the HARB has been reviewing, and those are like changes to roofs from metal to shingle, shingle to metal. And for example, some of the homes that have gone before you before, and those kinds of things were already consistent with the regulations. And then to streamline that permitting process, the Historic Architecture Review Board recommended that we go ahead and produce some type of amendment to take forward that would allow for the Land Development Regulation Administrator to make some decisions to be able to approve minor types of changes such as re-roofing, existing features that are being replaced with the same type of thing, accessory structures. And these types of things would go before that person, and then if there was any kind of concern, they would go back to the Historic Architecture Review Board anyway. So that the advantage of that provides a shortening time frame of 4 to 6 weeks for that approval process that the homeowner can look for, or the business owner in the district. So the certificate of approval process is in addition to all the other normal building and zoning process that they would have to go through for approval to make any changes. So they have to still comply with all regulations. And this particular opportunity is provided for in the proposed regulations. As you saw at your last meeting, the actions that are eligible, as we discussed, they would be administratively issued, and if any question, they go to the HARP, as we said. We went over the types of uses. In addition, the types of review. When any kind of a minor change is reviewed, it'll be looked at according to the criteria that's specified in your code. And these additional requirements include looking at the goals, objectives, and policies of the future land use element, specifically the vision sub-element, and consistency with surrounding properties in the historic district, and providing that it's compatible with the Florida vernacular and the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. The Planning and Zoning Board did vote unanimously to 4-0 to approve the recommended text that was presented by staff, and they added a whereas clause to recognize that the Historic Architecture Review Board did direct the staff to do this, and they are very interested in streamlining that approval process. Staff recommendation is for approval, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Another item that got a lot of positive feedback after the first reading. Anybody have any questions for staff between the first reading and the second? If not, I'll entertain a motion, put it on the floor. I have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth. Second from Commissioner Martins. Anyone on the dais have any questions or comments on the motion on the floor? Does the public have any questions or comments on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously, and we're on to our agenda items. First one is our Newberry Main Street funding agreement, which has been delayed a little bit. If you remember at the last budget cycle, we decided that we wanted to, in essence, try to hire Main Street to do some things that we would like done, and we were going to fund them, and now we actually have that agreement in front of us. Before I turn it over to Mike, I'm not sure I was able to talk to everybody ahead of time. I'm going to be asking for one change. I was able to sit down and talk with the president, but this came up at the very end of last week. So I'm going to ask Mike if he'll go through the agreement, and then when he gets to the part that I'm going to ask to be pulled out, and I'll go over what I'd like to do instead, and we can have that conversation. Does that sound amenable to everyone? Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you indicated, when we adopted the fiscal year 19 budget, and one we're currently in, we included $10,000 in funding for Newberry Main Street. The Commission asked us to bring back a funding agreement, which we began working on immediately. However, right after the beginning of the year, we ran into a little bit of a issue that put us in a wait-and-see mode, and we waited it out. Looks like the city's revenues are going to meet our initial projections, and so we completed the agreement and have it before you tonight. To the mayor's suggestion of maybe there's an additional item he'd like to include in there, from staff's perspective, that's completely fine. It is the first time that any of you guys have ever seen this list, and oftentimes we list of projects. Oftentimes we present an agreement or a new concept to the Commission for feedback. So we took our best stab. The agreement is fairly straightforward in terms of the term and the scope. It's a short-term agreement. It's intended to end with this fiscal year, which is coming up in about 4.5 months now. The city provides for $10,000 in funding to Newberry Main Street, and in addition to that, The work scope includes some deliverables by Newberry Main Street. We've identified 3 initially. There was contemplated that there would be 4. The 4th project kind of fell by the wayside based on feedback we'd been getting from the commission recently. The deliverables are to do the research and enable a Newberry Farmers Market, to work on tourist-oriented directional signage plan, and to work on a Newberry downtown murals program. All of these projects were things that staff fielded from the commission at some point in the last year or so as ideas of things we'd like to work on, with an acknowledgement that when we can work it in the queue. We haven't really found the time to work those types of things in the queue, but we think they're meaningful projects, and we think they're exactly the type of projects that we could partner with the Main Street to do that initial research for. We discussed these projects with the Main Street team, although, like I said, this is the first time we've publicly gotten them out in front of our commission. So if there's project suggestions or ideas, things you'd like to see, we'd be happy to take another crack at it. Finally, as I mentioned, the compensation is for $10,000 annually, and we propose to divvy that out in quarterly payments. I'm available for questions if you have any.
Okay, so as we have discussed, we have Newberry's 125-year anniversary upcoming. Commissioner Hersom and I and a couple of residents had a very informal preliminary meeting, mainly to discuss how do we form a committee to get this started. But one of the ideas that came out of that meeting is time sensitive if we want to do it successfully. And I'll try to do this as succinctly as possible, but basically the idea would be to ask Main Street to run an art contest of that whatever their artists think are iconic Newberry images, iconic Newberry scenes. Leave it up to them, encourage a lot of participation. They could run that contest. Hopefully we'd get 10 to 20 participants, then we could judge. The winning piece of art we could auction off at a banquet to help recuperate some of the expenses. But that winning piece of art we would turn into prints that could be sold much cheaper. It could go on the whatever commemorative items that we produce to celebrate the 125 year could go on shirts, could go on plates, could go on mugs, whatever that is. But another of the facets of the idea was having a kickoff event in January of 2020. We would want that piece of artwork on display, maybe even to be auctioned off that night while we have some people, hopefully with generous pockets in front of us, and as well with a calendar of events that will happen over the course of the year. I would propose to the commission that instead of adding a 4th, the Main Street is actually, they've begun work on all 3. I think they even started work on the 4th one that we pulled. But the mural program, I'm not sure is necessary with the two-way pairs going through. I'm not sure where we would put the murals. High Springs is embarking on a really, really expensive, very nice mural program. So I would actually suggest tabling the murals until we figure out what's going to happen with the streets, where we might put those murals, and instead putting the art contest in that place. I think in order to get really good participation, they're going to have to offer a cash prize. They're going to have a showing. They're going to have judges. They're going to need some funds to be able to do that. And I think that would alleviate one of the things that we would look at during our budget of funding. We could take care of right now in this year's budget if we pull out 3 and we put in that sort of skeleton of an idea. So if I missed anything, Commissioner Hersom, any broad strokes, and I apologize to Main Street for the quickness of this. We kind of threw together a little impromptu meeting at the end of last week. We had this idea. We realized, we got to talk to Main Street quickly, and then that was my fault. I was still grading AP Gov tests, and my eyes were a little blurry, and I could never get my brain quite focused back at the end of the day. So I apologize for having to have this conversation so last minute. Commissioner Hersom?
No, I think you hit all the high points with the necessity of the timing being imperative to have everything in place to start 2020 with off-right, with the opportunities, with the celebration and the artwork as a cornerstone for that opportunity to start the year.
I'm not sure the time needed to take an original painting and digitize it to make, just as a digital file format. I would imagine we would need this art contest completed no later than November, maybe even in October. So, I'm not sure. Certainly, we could take out 3, put this idea in, ask staff to go back and flesh it out a little bit, and then if there's any considerable problems or hiccups, Main Street could work with staff to see if they're answerable, solvable, and then should we vote on this tonight then, or should we wait to get the paperwork in front?
Mr. Mayor, given the level of detail that you provided with the art contest, if the commission makes a motion to authorize the mayor to execute the agreement, or the city manager, whoever, with the stipulation that the murals program be deleted and an art program put in, we could go ahead and execute the agreement and get it moving. We would provide the commission with copies of the executed agreement so they'd be aware. And we have the city attorneys present, we have staff present, and Main Street's present, so everybody's kind of aware of the essence. Most of these are about 1 paragraph long. I think we could get it together if the commission's comfortable with that, and if not, we'll have it back on June 24th.
Time is of the essence, so if everyone's comfortable with it, I would prefer to get it moving tonight. And that is sort of the broad strokes. I can't think of, I thought it was Commissioner Hersum's concept. I thought it was a pretty ingenious idea to do it. Invite the community in, judge, have something that, everyone was kind of a part of, and then we can use that all throughout the year as, and everyone else we'd have a runner-up and all that. There'd be a lot of great art to commemorate Newberry as well. Is everyone comfortable with pulling the murals out? I know there was some excitement about the murals. I'm not sure with the two-way pairs. I think in everybody's mind is going to be these buildings coming west, and now that road will be heading east. So they wouldn't necessarily be as visible as they would have before. Thoughts? If there's no objection, does Main Street want to lob an objection before we vote on this? Okay. Commissioner Norfleet.
On item 2, the tourist-oriented directional signage, what are we trying to direct the tourists to?
That's good. I'm kind of excited about the Todds.
Mr. Mayor, this is actually a concept that has been floating around for at least 4 years. I think as Champions Park got up on its feet, Commissioner Farnsworth has spoken to me often about it, so there's been a few conversations during budget hearings and from time to time on the dais that we have some sort of signage that would direct visitors that are in the Newberry vicinity to Easton, to Champions Park, even to Canterbury, when at the time it was thought to be a private facility. It's becoming a publicly owned facility. Gatorback, historic downtown Newberry, and then anything else. And the concept that we've seen around the state that we haven't fleshed out, but hopefully Main Street's going to flesh out for us, is it's a consistent sign shape and look. So when you see it in the distance, you recognize the shape and you say, I'm about to learn where something in Newberry is. Yeah. You see them currently in anywhere, any beach community has them. St. Augustine in particular, I happen to be over there quite a bit. They have plenty of signage telling you how to get to the amphitheater, to their historic downtown area, in any of the key visitor locations, and we thought we'd just kind of borrow off of that, or that's what we understood. We'd borrow off those ideas so that folks could find Champions Park. I think at one point, Champions Park, to get there, was to go all the way down 26 at County Road 337, tour the mayor's plantation, and then come in from Southwest 30th Avenue from the west side. And so hopefully with this type of signage, we'll be able to move people through Newberry. We especially want the folks at Champions Park to, when they're leaving, to see a sign that says, hey, you need to go visit historic downtown Newberry and take a left and come north into Newberry rather than take a right and go down to Archer and back to their hotels.
Follow-up question? No. All right. Commissioner Martin?
I apologize. I guess when I was doing the review of my packet, I didn't actually catch this agreement. I don't recall requesting a funding agreement to come back. It seems to me that we had outlined $10,000 for Main Street, but it was on a receipt reimbursement style basis. But, you know, obviously present company completely excluded. I have a lot of, this kind of puts me in a little bit of a hard spot of funding Main Street just in order to be consistent what I've said over the last 6 years or so. I looked through while I was sitting here, there's a sovereignty immunity clause. Does that open us up to potentially payment for somebody that's hurt or something in association to the relationship?
You want to field that one?
If you're prepared to answer it.
I didn't have the most updated agreement, so I'm pulling it up.
Scott looks like he has the.
That clause would protect us. In other words, Main Street is a quasi-public entity.
Right.
They're operating under the auspices of our agreement, either tacitly or in writing. And so if somebody was injured at a Main Street event, what that clause does is it protects the city and it establishes the statutory immunity that we would have. So our insurance would have a total of the sovereign immunity claim, which I think is $300,000 per occurrence and $200 per individual. I think that's what 768 does.
If this agreement is not in place, are we on the hook for that for any
I think
reason?
we would still interpose our sovereign immunity claims. It just specifies that really any third party that we still have the sovereign immunity clause in effect. So I think it would still be there, Commissioner Martin.
Thank you. Does we're already kind of 3/4 of the way through this budget at this point?
Yes, sir.
Was the anticipation of paying the other $5,000 that's kind of come and gone already? Plus the other $2,500 that's coming due theoretically, what is it, June 30th?
Mr. Mayor, if this, one, going back to budget times, there was some conversation about whether it would be reimbursable upon receipts, and we understood, I guess it was a workshop setting, that the majority felt like that the $10,000 in funding is independent of work performed, but there would be some task asked of. So we wrote up the agreement in that vein. Staff's thought is that once this is approved, we would immediately pay Main Street up to current. So at the end of this month, we'd get their third installment. I guess we'd make 2 installments straight out of the gate, and then make the third installment at the end of this month, and with the last one due in the fourth quarter.
I think also
you could be right. I don't recall it. I don't know. Like I said, this kind of this puts me in a little bit of a hard spot. I'll end up voting against it just to be consistent. Again, present company excluded, who is actually running the organization.
And I think that the issue is that basically what we're hiring Main Street to do is more intellectual property than it is a tangible, they have an expense and they get a receipt. We're asking them to do the research, to go to get training, to go to do some things that would take away staff time and take away our time. So it's not a pass-through kind of a situation. I didn't mean to cut you off, Commissioner Coleman.
My fellow commissioners need to understand that this is a state organization. This isn't some private They're here giving their blood, sweat, and tears voluntarily. And if we don't, and they've done an unbelievable job, and if we don't put some equity into them, I mean, I know they're supposed to make their own money with us helping. It's a partnership that's through the state of Florida. So if we don't do anything, the state can come in here and pull it any time. So this isn't like we're giving some private organization $10,000 and saying here. And I like the direction that they're going in, so it's a firm yes for me.
Okay. Any further questions, comments from the dais? Commissioner Herson.
I think, as we look at that list, that Main Street is already demonstrating the ability to follow through on what the commission has asked, and so I'm certainly going to be supportive of this, and hopefully they are excited on taking on the art contest for the Kloski Centennial.
I'm glad you keep saying it because I keep forgetting that word. I want to say quintessential, and that's not right. Kloski, I got it. All right, I need to practice it too. I want to, since you brought that up, I want to echo that sentiment because Main Street has worked in a good faith effort on all of these things as we worked through our year, and you worked with us, and we appreciate that. You've already got the farmers market up and running. I just on a personal note, what's the name of the guy who sells beef there? Yeah, I had that steak tonight. The first time I've had it. And guys, if you haven't had that steak, you need to go tomorrow, 4 to 7. He sells out quickly, so go get you Embers, Mark's, right there. Go get one. Check it out. Other questions about we're good with pulling number 3. We think we've given enough detail to staff to put in the art contest. We can work out those details. Okay, I'll entertain Commissioner Norfleet.
On the farmers market for the 3 items, they've already started on the farmers market. Seems to be doing pretty good, and what you was talking about. But I'd like to see maybe the signs be pulled out for this fiscal year, maybe put in next fiscal year and cut it by a third.
You're talking about what's already been budgeted and planned?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, my only immediate response to that would be that they've already been sort of working in a good faith effort towards that. They've gone to workshops and done research on the TODs. But commission thoughts on it?
I'd say we made the commitment up front that we ought to honor that commitment. If we want to change the budgetary amount, we change it at the next budget cycle, not in this budget cycle.
Okay. Other thoughts?
Changes.
Okay. I have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth. Was that a second from Commissioner Coleman? Okay. All right. Then we have a motion on the floor to approve the funding agreement, changing out 3 with the art contest. Commission thoughts on the motion on the floor? Questions on the motion on the floor? Okay. Public questions, comments on the motion on the floor? Okay. Hearing none, roll call. Commissioner Coleman?
Aye.
Commissioner Herson?
Aye.
Commissioner Farnsworth?
Aye.
Commissioner Martin?
No.
Commissioner Norfleet? No. Motion passes 3-2. Thank you. I appreciate Main Street waiting on us and being patient. Thank you so much for all you're doing. And that takes us to item B, Florida League of Cities voting delegates.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief on this. As you know, the Florida League of Cities holds an annual conference each year in August. This year, the city of Newberry is being represented by Commissioner Coleman, by Commissioner Martin, and myself. Each year, the league will present some 30 to 100 ideas that they've come up with that as potential topics for advocating for or against in the upcoming legislative session, and then the cities will vote their preference on those topics, and the majority will carry, and that will become the legislative action items for the league moving forward. So it's a very important responsibility for someone to be designated our voting delegate, and I request that the city decide who they would like to take that role as we move into the meeting in August.
Commissioner Coleman?
I move that Tim Martin will be our voting delegate for the Florida League of Cities.
I have a motion from Commissioner Coleman, a second from Commissioner Farnsworth for Commissioner Martin to be the official voting delegate. Comments, questions on the motion on the floor?
I think he'd do a great job.
Does the public have comments or questions on the floor, on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. All right. Mike, tell us about the broadband study.
Mr. Mayor, the city of Gainesville has been working towards a community broadband project. They recognize, or they're under the impression and the belief, I think many in Newberry hold the same belief, that broadband is becoming an essential utility service and not one that folks can do without, much like water, sewer, or electric. So their mayor, Lauren Poe, transmitted a letter inviting us to attend a meeting where they're going to discuss the draft study. This is more of an informational item. Wanted the commission to know about the community broadband study, about the meeting that's coming up. It's on June the 20th, and that staff will be attending. We will report back from it at some point as this thing moves forward. If Gainesville, if they elect to move this forward, the sentiment has been to ask the smaller cities in Alachua County to participate at some level because rural broadband is a big component. So they've asked Alachua County and the rural cities to kind of keep an eye on this and consider a willingness to participate as it moves forward. So just wanted y'all to be aware and answer any questions you have. We'll have real responses to questions after the meeting on June 20th, which is open to all elected officials if you'd care to attend.
Okay. Any questions about the broadband study? Be eager to see what they have to say. Commissioner Norfleet, push hard.
This broadband study that the this broadband, is this done by the city that decided to go back to a 100-year-old technology and build a wood biomass plant?
That is one and the same. Cities, I haven't seen their study. This is also the city that embarked on GRUCOM some in the early 1990s, and their communications branch of Gainesville Regional Utilities seems to have a very robust platform and has lots of users and is a profitable enterprise for the city. So, I believe this is the city's initiative, but my expectation is that whatever they move forward on will be rolled out through GRUCOM and Gainesville Regional Utilities.
Any other questions, comments? All right, I think we have some exciting road improvement projects that you're going to present to us. Is that you or Mike is going to do it himself? All right. Somebody ran off with a clicker.
Mr. Mayor, we've had a lot of conversations in Newberry about our Twin Pairs project.
Is he on, Amy?
Okay. Just got to get. We've had a lot of conversation about the Twin Pairs projects that are pending. They're pretty far out in the future by all accounts. We expect construction maybe to begin in 5 years or so, 5 to 6 years. In the meantime, there are lots of smaller projects that are going to be occurring in our community in the next year or two that we've been talking about them, and I realized that the community may not be aware. So I wanted to do a public presentation, get the commission on up to speed on what's going on so that when construction starts, you'll say, yeah, we were aware of that. So upcoming projects that are not the Twin Pairs, they're doing some intersection improvements at State Road 45 and Newberry Lane, right there at the railroad tracks. Also another project, County Line, western Western Newberry at State Road 26 and 298th Street, which is also County Line Road. Project to mill and resurface State Road 26 from somewhere in the vicinity of Canterbury, Hitchcock's area, east to 170th. And then finally, intersection improvements at Southwest 15th Avenue and State Road 45 near Oakview Village
Hang on
and
one second,
Newberry.
Is 170th the 241 South?
It
Is it that
is.
far?
It is. Yeah. So we have pictures and everything. I'm just kind of having fun with this.
Color coordinated
if you don't mind. Color coordinated. So here's the first project, State Road 45 at Newberry Lane. They're doing intersection modifications, primarily to restrict unsafe turn movement. So it's going to feel inconvenient. You're going to lose the ability to turn left onto Newberry Lane coming from north. If you're southbound on State Road 45, that's going to be inconvenient. It's also going to be inconvenient when you aren't able to turn south on State Road 45 coming out of Newberry Lane. But all of the modifications, improvements are geared at driver safety, particularly to keep cars from staging on the railroad tracks as they have been doing. So it's a joint project between DOT and CSX, and in DOT's words, that means we're not exactly sure where anything's going to happen because we're having to deal with CSX. I hope no one's watching. Work is expected to begin in the late summer or fall of 19, so it is imminent.
And Mike, is the reason that FDOT's communication with us on this project has been so limited in comparison to the two-way pairs because most of these are driven by safety regulations, or because we haven't been given an opportunity to give any input on this kind of stuff? Is that because it's kind of out of everybody's hands?
Mr. Mayor, they have had public hearings. They're not doing a PD&E study where you have to have 4 or 5 public hearings, but there have been public hearings within the community. These are very minor changes in magnitude by comparison to a $30 million project. These are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that's probably why we are seeing less of a wave of information from FDOT. Here's a handout from the public meeting that shows what the intersection improvements are going to look like. You can see the railroad tracks right where the green sign is at the bottom is where Newberry Lane would be interconnecting. That's the intersection with State Road 45. So you can see that they're going to limit the eastbound turn movement off of State Road 45 and the what's the other movement? And the you can, and I take that back. What you can't do is turn left on the 7th Avenue after you cross the railroad tracks. If you can see up there, that was my mistake. I was just confused. So that's a rendering of what it's going to look like, what those proposed improvements are, and like I said, we're pretty close to starting those. So moving on to the next project, this is the project out on County Line Road. FDOT's been acquiring land. We're going to have to move some electrical facilities at our expense. So it's impacting us fiscally. You'll see that in the upcoming budget. And they're putting in some turn lanes. So it's intersection modifications to provide turn lanes. This work is expected to begin about a year from now, in late summer or fall.
On that one, Mike, I'm assuming that they are getting ready to go 4-lane all the way to Trenton. Is that why
this
they're making
does
these
not
modifications?
That may have to be part of why they're going ahead with the land acquisition, because they're putting in left-hand turn lanes, which to me you wouldn't think they need additional land for. And as you can see in the renderings, they don't seem to necessarily be needing it. But no, they're keeping it 2 lanes. They're just adding the left-hand turn lanes. I guess that helps with preventing traffic from backing up during peak hours. So that's kind of a rendering of what is anticipated to look like. Next project is State Road 45 East, which is a just not beginning at State Road 45. It's actually going to begin a little bit east of State Road 45. But it's a 5-mile stretch going down to 170th Street of mill and resurface. Just your generic variety, run your milling machine out there, move traffic over to one lane, and then come back and put in a new asphalt surface. And work is expected to begin same time frame as the other project on the western end of Newberry, about a year from now, maybe a few months later, late fall or winter. And the fourth project is at 15th Avenue over near Oakview Middle School and Oakview Village, intersection improvements. Again, they're going to be providing a turn lane for southbound. If you're southbound on State Road 45, they're going to add a turn lane for westbound traffic on 15th Avenue. So that work is about 2 years out, in the fall of 2021. And you can see the area now where the sidewalk is, that's going to be demolished. There's an existing wood fence that will be demolished. There's a very large brick monument type sign that is scheduled for demolition to put that turn lane in, and the sidewalk is going to be pushed back. There's an existing what they call a Murphy zone, which is a reservation that the state has. They're going to be moving their facilities back west into that Murphy zone. And that concludes the presentation. If you have any questions.
Could you go back one slide?
Sure.
I should open up to the commission first. Commission have any questions on any of these FDOT projects? Is there, Mike, on this one in particular, it's awkward how 15th is a little offset. And I know that there's some plans at some point in the future to make that a collector road to get all the way through. Is there any opportunity while they're there to try to make that a straighter shot?
Mr. Mayor, I don't believe so for the operational improvement that they're seeking. This is really at the operations level for FDOT. They're going to come through with a mill and resurface on State Road 45 that I think will anticipate the project that you're speaking to. It's going to require a lot of effort from the city, though, because 15th Avenue, it's just where the misalignment is, are local roads. 15th currently is on the west side is City of Newberry's, on the east side is Alachua County's, but we maintain it. And the thought is that at some point that 15th on the east side will become the City of Newberry's if we can ever get our road agreements right. So that will be an opportunity for us to partner. I think FDOT will take the lead on coming up with ideas and suggestions for what they think is the safest, most efficient way to design that intersection.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Martin? No? Yeah. Thank you, sir. We appreciate the update. All right, Mr. Manager, who's going to bring the much-awaited CRA agreement to us?
Mr. Mayor, I think that a lot of people are candidates. Brian could do it or Scott could do it, but since you've all seen the agreement and you've seen it several times, and the only changes from when you approved it in August of 17 until today is the addition of proper dating. So we've got the effective date for the agreement being January of 19, correct? I mean January of 20. And the base year being calendar year 20 as well. Those are the only changes from when you approved it in 2017 and our discussion in our joint meeting just a few weeks ago.
And just so everyone is clear and everyone in the audience kind of knows where we're at, remember, this is the agreement to enter into an agreement. So at this point, now we will move forward and we will get real precise about that line and the map and what's included. We'll generate a list of projects. That's when the real work of the CRA, well, the next phase of the real work of the CRA will begin. So with everything that the manager said, are you guys comfortable agreeing to enter into an agreement with the county on the CRA without hearing a presentation, or do you want Brian to come back up and take you through it again? Commissioner Martin?
I don't know, I feel like that's what we did at the joint meeting already. Is it really, we need another motion? If so, I
Well, we
will-
changed the dates, that's why I think we need another
Right, there was
motion.
a change in the start.
I'll offer another
year.
motion. I'll offer a replacement motion to,
And this will, the actual motion is to adopt a resolution that authorizes execution of the agreement by the mayor.
So moved.
what he said.
I got a motion from
moved. So
Commissioner
moved.
Martin,
Second.
a second from Commissioner Farnsworth. Any questions or comments on the motion on the floor from the dais? Does the audience have any questions or comments from the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Hallelujah. Okay, and we are on to comments. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to recognize the newest member of the American Institute of Certified Planners. Would you please stand, Brian Thomas? Brian's it's a very prestigious designation to reach this, and I think that Brian set a new curve. I'm pretty sure it was a perfect score. So the 2,400 if it was his SATs. Now I don't know his score, but I know he passed, and I know he passed on his first exam, which is much more than I could ever say. So congratulations, Brian. I'm very proud of you, and you do the city of Newberry a lot of credit when you take on this extra workload. It was a lot of after-hours work for Brian to achieve this. Next, I would like to remind everybody that the Newberry Fire Department renovation celebration will be held this Thursday at 3 p.m. at Newberry's Fire Department. We want to invite you all. The public is invited. We want to show off our new digs and our new ambulance and just have a great time of celebration and appreciate the work and the strength of will that the commission had in moving that project forward. And finally, just a reminder that what should be our last charter review meeting, charter review committee meeting, is next Monday night at 6 p.m., right? That's when those start?
No, 7.
7 p.m. for charter review. 7 p.m. for charter review. And once that concludes, then the commission should expect information to start coming their way in either form of a workshop, I think maybe a series of workshops, and then eventually there's some decision-making about how you'd like to proceed. So that concludes my comments, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. And just to piggyback on that last one, it will be a series of workshops, 2, potentially 3, and we'll group them together in some way that makes sense to think about things juxtaposed. So, but as soon as the review committee is done, it'll get with you guys, and as soon as you guys, we'll have open workshops to the public, but as soon as you guys are comfortable with what the review committee has done, then we'll start having more public workshops to move that towards a ballot. I think we've got some updated information, but maybe that's too much to get into right now. We'll get through the charter review right now, and then we'll talk about that. So, thank you, Mr. Manager. Madam Clerk? Thank you, ma'am. Madam Attorney?
Nothing right now.
All right, wonderful. Commissioner Coleman? Commissioner Hersom?
I've scheduled a meeting with the sheriff to talk about upcoming negotiations with them, so I'm looking forward to that on Thursday morning, and then be able to refresh myself with the good meeting in the afternoon at the fire department.
All right.
And then I was just happy to read in the paper, Gainesville is asking for full-time commissioner status for their commissioners, whereas we in Newberry can still manage to do it on a part-time basis and get it done better than they do.
You're stealing my thunder. I was going to ask for full-time, man. Commissioner Farnsworth?
I just want to apologize because I won't be able to make it to the fire department dedication. I requested June the 6th, and then it got changed, and I wasn't able to get the time off on the 13th, but I was really wanting to be there, and need to give the firemen and ladies my apologies for not being able to attend.
We will absolutely. Commissioner Martin? Commissioner Norfleet? I have a couple of things. First, I want to issue a thank you to Commissioner Coleman, who has agreed to be the Commissioner Liaison for the Newberry Watermelon Festival. That's he's taking it on. That's a year-long commitment. We appreciate that. I also want to thank Commissioner Norfleet. He has agreed to take Joy's place as the Commissioner Liaison for Main Street. You guys meet the third Monday of every month at 6 p.m., which is why the charter review is at 7 p.m., correct? And you meet right over here at the fire station art gallery. I know that we're heading into budget, and you guys are probably getting a lot of the same communications that I am about road maintenance. So I just want you guys to remember as we go into those conversations that had the county agreed to our roads proposal, we had in that same proposal agreed to spend some money on chip sealing roads and those kinds of things. So I'd ask you to think about continuing without the county and working on our own roads agreement. Now, I think that deal would probably look very different internally without the county. A lot of the roads that we had agreed to chip seal, we had agreed because they were little segments inside county roads. And I always want to be sure that we're also being cognizant of the fact that we still have dirt roads in our urban core. So while I agree and I hear all the residents asking for a higher level of service on lime rock roads and dirt roads, I think there has to be a balance there. I do think that we probably need to up the rock that we're actually putting down. But I've had 3 or 4 conversations today, so I want to make sure residents are hearing us have this conversation. They're not being ignored. We understand that there are issues, and we understand that we have more people, and that they're asking for a higher level of service. But we also have to balance that with the people in our urban core and long-term needs. But I'd ask staff, when we have our budget workshops, we segment them into different groups. I'd like to advertise well in advance the night that we're talking, where it would be appropriate to talk about the road maintenance and how much we're spending in the urban core versus how much we're spending in the outer areas and those kinds of things. Another budgetary concern that I'd like to put on your plate is, and I'm not even going to try to say it again, it's the 125-year anniversary. Say it one more time for me.
Quasquicentennial.
I'm going to get it. By the end of the year, I'll have that down. What Matt and I thought would be appropriate for a committee would be to reach out and ask for one person as a representative from each of the groups that we're going to be asking to participate. So we're going to reach out to Main Street and ask for one person to be on that committee, reach out to the Watermelon Festival, the Lions Club, whoever that is, and send a representative to keep the lines of communication going so that everybody is part of it. I think that we're entering into a celebration that's going to take some planning and it's going to take a lot of work. I think that what we need to do would be to ask staff, and I think it might be appropriate in this case for the manager and the clerk to split the supervision of a staff member or two who work with those committees to help keep the notes, help hit the deadlines, to make sure that, because what we need to be telling Main Street is we want the Fall Festival to be replete with 125 years of Newberry. So start planning that now, and by the beginning of August, bring us a wish list of, if we could have everything we want to really make that festival, be amazing. This is what it is as an itemized list, and give you guys the opportunity to identify the things that you're willing to partner with, that you're willing to pay for, that you're not interested in, so that you can have time before you pass the budget in September. I think there's going to have to be a staff member or two that one person takes Main Street and the Garden Club and something else, and another person takes, so that we're keeping all of this communication in check. Do you guys agree with, one, just planting the seed that there's going to be budgetary implications to celebrate 125 years, and two, that the manager and the clerk should work together on identifying a staff member or two that could spearhead that? Does that sound like a good plan? It's not every year, and it's at the same time, it's the Watermelon Festival's 75th year. So it's a big year all around. I mean, you got 75 years of Watermelon Festival, 125 years of Newberry. It's going to be a fun year. We don't have the committee yet, but we've sat down with a couple of people. We've got a lot of really good ideas. It should be a lot of fun. My last comment tonight is, again, asking y'all's permission to ask staff to do some research. As you guys know, the county has been on a roll here lately, passing county-wide ordinances. I think they've passed 3 to 5 recently. And every time the county passes a county-wide ordinance, whether we agree or we disagree with the concept doesn't really matter. We have to stop what we're doing. We have to research it. We have to go down to the county and either object or support. It distracts us. It costs money. It costs time. I understand that I think it's the water quality, all the countywide ordinances that they pass under Amendment 1, we can't opt out of. I believe that the other things, we have the ability, the authority to opt out. So what I would like to do is authorize Mike to work with our legal team and figure out exactly what we can opt in or opt out of and what we can't, and then bring back to us a blanket policy that regardless of the issue, the city of Newberry opts out of any countywide ordinance. It just happens. If they pass one, it comes in front of us on our consent agenda at the very next meeting, and we just opt out of it. We don't do any research. If you guys care about the issue enough, one of you is always free and empowered to bring that issue back and say, I want to adopt that ordinance, or I want us to adopt a companion ordinance. But instead of getting bogged down in the politics of any particular issue, we just opt out. Thoughts on that? Commissioner Martin?
I think there's definitely some validity to trying to pull that off. It is probably difficult for the staff to kind of try to keep up with the moving of the goalposts. But if there is some way we can kind of hybrid something together, I think that does take a little bit of pressure off of us. And I mean, it does. There are things that we agree with them. There are things that we disagree with them. But we don't have the economies of scale that they have the luxury of dealing with, and we can definitely take these things up on a case-by-case basis. So I would definitely be interested in at least looking at it for sure.
Thank you, Commissioner Herson.
Yeah, I would support that position of just the blanket. I'm not supporting it. The concept that we should be able to make our own rules first rather than submitting to the county's rules resonates with me from a home rule standpoint, and so I believe we ought to be able to set those rules first. So I would support the blanket opt out and then have the opportunity to decide what we agree with them on.
Any other thoughts or comments? I mean, at the end of the day, I didn't say it, but to me, this is a home rule issue. It's not an issue about any of the particular ordinances. It's about home rule, and it's about our economies of scale and ability to focus on all the different things that they have extra staff to focus on, and we just don't. If we stop and do that research, then we're not working on economic development. We're not getting inspections or permits out the door as fast as we could be. We're getting distracted from our core mission. So that would be my stance and my take on it. So I see a lot of head nods. I think I got 3 at least, 4, 5 staff. Is that direction clear enough to you, or do you have any questions about what I'm asking?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor. We understand clearly. I think it's something we'll be able to pull together fairly quickly, get a good understanding of the county's ordinances and what they have authority over. We have an expert on the city attorney staff and the county ordinances, and so I think we'll be able to move through it pretty quickly.
Okay, thank you. All right, public comment. You got 5 minutes. Yeah, come on down.
I want to thank you all tonight for moving forward the funding agreement. It means a lot to everyone, to this city, and you effectively put your money where your mouth is. Economic development is the key to our future, as we've all talked about, and I think the Newbury Main Street Organization is the key to the future of the economic development of the downtown area. If you like what you saw without us being funded for many years, well, hold on to your seats, because I think we're going to make you proud. We're going to work hard. What organization has a half a dozen people show up on a Monday night just to be here and support this organization? And our members are actually involved in the community. Randy is on the Alachua County Rural Advisory Committee. Peggy was just appointed to the Historic Architectural Review Board. We have an intern that's a grad student at UF who's specializing in learning about farmers markets and how that works. Newbury Main Street Organization isn't an independent organization, but save for the city, we would not exist. I mean, even in the Newbury the comp plan, it states that the city will support it and it will help maintain it. And we just kind of fell off the wagon for a few years. So we're happy to be back on. We're going to have, deliverables and visible ways you can see what we're doing in the community. And thank you, Commissioner Norfleet, for being our interim, or our liaison, sorry. We look forward to having you and getting you all up to speed on what we're doing. And we look forward to making the 125th year just a wonderful celebration, and with your support, we will help do it. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Other public comment? This
Just real
8
briefly.
years. I don't know that you've ever come for public comment.
I
I'm
know.
excited.
Well, I
Yeah.
have a point that came up several years ago, which piqued my interest, and I'll get to that in just a second. On the blanket home rule powers opt-out, I don't think we can do it. We're going to look at it, and we'll communicate with Mike. There's a case that came out of Volusia County. It was Ormond Beach versus Volusia County. They opted out of an impact fee ordinance. This is probably 15 years ago or so. They didn't state a public purpose with specificity on that particular issue. The 5th DCA ruled that because they didn't state a public purpose, even though they had the home rule power to opt out potentially of that impact fee ordinance that Volusia County was interposing, the ordinance opting out failed. So based upon that, I think we're going to have to opt out on a case-by-case analysis. But I'll look at that, talk to Dave Wagner, who is the former county attorney on our staff, and we'll see if we can come up with a plan on that. But I think we're going to have to do it on a case-by-case basis, Mayor. Number 2 is the AICP designation. That's a big deal. I just wanted to commend Brian as well on that. When he gives his substantial and competent evidence, which is the term you hear a lot of from legal and quasi-judicial proceedings, that gives us a leg up if we ever get challenged in one of those proceedings. When we have somebody that has, there's planning organizations in the state with really big cities that don't have anybody on staff that has the AICP designation. We have that now. So when you're in front of a judge and you say, hey, our guy has that designation, that's a big deal. So I just wanted to commend him as well. I knew he was taking it, and we really wished him a lot of luck, and congratulations, Brian. That's terrific. Now, for the thing I really came up here, several years ago, Commissioner Coleman said, hey, lacrosse is a wave of the future. I didn't understand what he was talking about then, but I've got a little 10-year-old that plays on the Gainesville Generals. 3 weekends ago, we were in Jacksonville. 2 weekends ago, we were in Orlando at fields. Last weekend was Hillsborough Tampa field. They've just finished their field. It's a marvelous facility. And to my knowledge, there's nowhere around here that plays lacrosse. And what I see is thousands and thousands and thousands of families that are out there with all their kids, staying in hotels and doing that sort of thing. These fields can be used for soccer. They're kind of cross-planned. They can use them for soccer one weekend, lacrosse the next weekend. And I really didn't understand what he was talking about back then, but I understand it now. And
Well, you've made his night.
It's really something. And once you get involved in all of that, you see what's really happening. And I think there is a number of community leaders in Alachua County that could coalesce. And we've got some acreage down down south of here that I think would be ideal for that, and I think it's just something waiting to happen. And if there's I would lend my efforts. I have some contacts in that arena that I could, we could coalesce, and Commissioner Coleman knew what he was talking about several years ago. I just didn't understand it. But I just wanted to make that point to you all, that that's something that's out there that we really need to pay attention to.
Well, we appreciate it. And as to the opt-out, what's that? Oh, yeah.
Girls and boys. Yeah, that's exactly right.
As to the opt-out, I'm not an attorney, but I've watched a lot of Law and Order. So once I get to the table with you, maybe we can come up with a creative way to make that happen. To the lacrosse point, Mike, where are we on our? Because the whole idea of expanding the fields out at Easton was to test that, get the fields, see what the market would bear. How many years are we from opening up?
We are. We should finalize the master plan for the Easton facility. It requires us what the work we're contemplating is going to require us to move our stormwater retention basin, so it warranted a master plan. We should finish that in 120 days or so, 4 to 5 months. Once that's complete and adopted by the commission, we'll immediately go into design. It is a project scope that, because of the stormwater facilities and the infrastructure requirements, is one that we wouldn't be able to do in-house, but we'll immediately go to design. And as soon as design's finished, we're open to finish that in fiscal year 20. That will go into construction fiscal year 21.
All right. And while I'm thinking on it, and we got Jamie in the audience, what's our timeline for park over by your house, West Park, for the Jimmy Nerd Park, yeah, for the volleyball courts? You got a volleyball team that's very, very excited.
There's going to be some earth moving equipment out there this month, maybe sooner than I'm knowing about it, within 2 weeks. There's work underway now.
Underway now.
Involves. We got to, again, infrastructure gets in the way, but we're doing some drainage improvements and some earthwork to begin with, and once we get that settled down, then we'll start construction on the volleyball courts.
All right. Scott?
My little boy's name is Eric, and I told him that I was going to announce the lacrosse thing.
Well, tell Eric he's got a friendly commission up here. They're already working on extra fields just to play lacrosse on. Foresight and vision. Well done, sir. Any other, don't anybody else say that to him. He's going to get a big head. Other public comment?
Yes, I just wanted to echo the sentiments from Newberry Main Street, the city, mayor, commissioners. Thank you for your support. And Commissioner Norfleet, we look forward to working with you. And I just want to brag a little bit on 4 of us that were left when it was downtrodden times, and we had $24 in the bank. And now I think we're up to maybe 4,000 something, but that was with complete volunteer, blood, sweat, and tears through festivals, art shows, artwork sales, and am I forgetting anything else? And so we really genuinely appreciate y'all's support. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment? Hearing none. You caught me right before it came down.
Yes. There have been several people here.
Could you introduce yourself to us,
I'm
please?
sorry. I'm Peggy Loy,
Nice to
Newbury
meet you.
Main Street, who dabbles in the farmer's market, et cetera. We've had several of y'all who've come to visit us on a Tuesday or two. We've had several of y'all who haven't come to see us at all. So if you come, we'll get a picture of you and put it on Facebook, like we did for Monty.
I still want to know what he does with them peppers.
I don't think that's any of your business either. We didn't get your picture, Paul, but we will next time.
If you got the guy that has the pickled eggs, you got to get a pickled egg, and a picture eating a pickled egg will go down in history. Any other public comment? Hearing none, we are adjourned.